Are our top stories for tonight. Japan issues safety alert as tensions with China deepens. And UN Security Council approves US-backed Gaza proposal. All that and more coming up on AWANI International. China has once again lodged a strong protest against Japan over remarks by Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi on Taiwan, saying they threaten China's core interests and regional stability. Amid the deepening diplomatic dispute, Japan warns its citizens in China to step up safety precautions as nationalist sentiment rises.
Japanese Foreign Ministry official Masaaki Kanai arrived in Beijing on Tuesday to meet senior Chinese diplomat Liu Jinsong in a bid to ease tensions. Beijing pressed for Takaichi to retract her remarks, but Japan's top government spokesperson Minoru Kihara indicated Tokyo has no plans to do so. China viewed Takaichi's comments on a potential military response to a Taiwan attack as violating its core interests, while Tokyo defended them as consistent with Japanese security laws. The row has already spilled into the public sphere, with anti-Japanese rhetoric surging on Chinese social media. Tokyo has advised its citizens to avoid crowded areas and travel in groups. China has similarly urged its citizens to avoid travel to Japan, a move expected to hit Japan's tourism sector, with Chinese visitors making up nearly a quarter of all arrivals. More than 10 Chinese airlines have offered refunds for Japan-bound routes through December, while Sichuan Airlines has cancelled plans for a Chengdu-Sapporo route until at least March. Film distributors in China have also suspended screenings of at least 2 Japanese films, a move state broadcaster CCTV described as a prudent decision amid rising domestic sentiment.
The UN Security Council has formally endorsed President Donald Trump's plan to end the war in Gaza, approving a US-drafted resolution that also authorizes an international stabilization force. The resolution comes after Israel and Hamas agreed last month to the first phase of Trump's 20-point peace plan, including a ceasefire and a hostage release deal.
Under the resolution, the International Stabilization Force will work with Israel and Egypt for an initial 2-year mandate. The force will secure borders, protect civilians, and deliver humanitarian aid. It will also train a Palestinian police force and ensure the process of permanently disarming armed groups, including Hamas. But it is far from clear that would-be troop contributors would agree to attempt to confront Hamas. Until now, the police there have operated under the authority of Hamas. Under the US-backed plan, Israeli forces will fully withdraw once the ISF has operational control. A board of peace, chaired by President Donald Trump, will coordinate security, reconstruction, and humanitarian planning. The resolution also sets a roadmap towards Palestinian self-determination and accountable governance, though it provides no timeline. Hamas has reiterated it will not disarm, potentially putting it at odds with the international force. Russia and China abstained from the vote, saying the resolution fails to define a UN role in Gaza. Russian Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia criticized the Council for endorsing a US-led plan based on Washington's assurances, handing full control of Gaza to the Board of Peace and the ISF despite unclear details. Trump, meanwhile, called the UN vote a moment of true historic proportion, adding that announcements about the Board of Peace will be made in the coming weeks.
That's our top news. Stay with us for more after this break.
Racism in Malaysia is not just a social issue, it is deeply entrenched in our institutions and our policy making.
How come every other time there is something that is triggering?
So whenever there is a heavy vehicle collision or a fatality involving heavy vehicles, public frustration often zeroes in on the driver, the lorry driver.
I mean, that's easiest. Typical pajak business model.
Magic bukan sekadar trik, tetapi ianya di dalam ruang di antara apa yang mereka lihat dan apa yang kita ingin percaya. Naik sebab pencuri yang paling hebat dan paling tersembunyi di Malaysia. Aku ada plan. Aku perlukan korang bertiga untuk curi hati Kesuma. Sekejap. Itu apa? I am the great Adi.
Magic Ropa. Sewa dan stream on demand atau sila ke saluran 480.
Welcome back. US President Donald Trump says he plans to approve the sale of F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia ahead of a meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Washington today. Saudi Arabia has requested up to 48 jets in a multi-billion-dollar package recently cleared by a Pentagon review. If approved, it would be the first sale of F-35s to the kingdom. The aircraft are part of Saudi Arabia's efforts to modernize its air force and counter Iran. Now, any deal would still need congressional approval, where concerns remain over the 2018 killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. This visit is bin Salman's first to the US since that killing. He denies ordering it, but accepts responsibility as Saudi Arabia's de facto ruler. Now, Trump, meanwhile, hoping to build on a $600 billion Saudi investment pledge from his visit to Riyadh earlier this year. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to visit Turkey on Wednesday in a bid to revive peace talks with Russia. He says his team is working to resume prisoner of war exchanges with Moscow, though he did not specify who he will meet during this trip.
Zelensky made the remarks shortly before meeting Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez to discuss funding for weapons. Earlier, the Ukrainian leader signed an accord with France to acquire up to 100 fighter jets and other military hardware, including drones. Negotiations to end the war have stalled since 3 rounds of direct talks in Istanbul earlier this year failed to produce a breakthrough. Prisoner exchanges and the repatriation of fallen soldiers' bodies have been the only tangible results, with the last exchange taking place in early October. Last week, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia remained open to negotiations to resolve the war, but blamed Kiev and Europe for the lack of progress.
Thailand's Supreme Court has ordered former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra to $542 million in taxes related to a 2006 share sale. The ruling revives a case that contributed to his ouster and later exile 19 years ago.
Thaksin had sold shares of ShinCorp, the telecommunications firm he founded, to Singapore's Temasek in 2006. The deal raised concerns about conflict of interest and triggered accusations of tax evasion. Thaksin has maintained that the transaction complied with existing rules, but the sale sparked mass protests in Bangkok that eventually led to the military removing him from power later that year. After spending more than a decade in exile, Thaksin is currently serving a prison sentence in Bangkok for corruption during his time in office.
Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim begins a tour of Africa this week, a trip aimed at deepening Malaysia's political and economic ties with the continent. Stops include Ethiopia, South Africa, and Kenya, with plans to attend the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg and explore new regional collaborations. Our editor Hafiz Marzuki has more details.
It's a packed week ahead for Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim as he made his way to Africa starting today for an official visit to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, where he is scheduled to meet the leaders of the country, of course, President Teh Atski Selassie, as well as the Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed Ali. Of course, he's here for the official visit at the invitation of Dr. Abiy Ahmed, who was here last year to Malaysia in order to strengthen the relationship between Malaysia and Ethiopia. And of course, as we know before this, Ethiopia is the home of the African Union as well as the African Union Commission. Therefore, the Prime Minister is also scheduled to have a meet with the chair of the Commission, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, during this official visit. That is happening between 18 November to 20th November. After that, Prime Minister Anwar is scheduled to go to Johannesburg, South Africa, of course, where the main thing would be him attending the Leaders Summit of G20 in Johannesburg. And of course, other than that, he's also scheduled to have a meet with the South African President, Cyril Ramaphosa, to discuss about potentials of working together between Malaysia and South Africa. And then lastly, he will head over to Nairobi, Kenya on the 23rd of November for another official visit, which is the last stop of his tour of Africa. There he is scheduled to have a meet with the President of Kenya, William Ruto, of course, again, to discuss bilateral as well as potential for cooperation between Malaysia and Kenya. We will bring to you the latest of his tour of Africa. Stay tuned to AWANI International for the latest from me and my camera person, Nofitri Zainuri. That's all for now. Back to you in the studio.
As violence in Myanmar escalates under the military junta, hundreds of Rohingya refugees continue to flee worsening conditions. Just last week, one boat carrying refugees sank off the coast of Malaysia, leaving nearly 30 people dead. Ahead of next month's elections, Adrian Pereira from North-South Initiative discusses how ASEAN should step in to stabilize the situation.
The problem with ASEAN is holding leaders accountable. The nature, the very structure of ASEAN itself does not allow that to happen. So it's time that ASEAN takes a hard position on this, and just sending people to observe a sham elections is just a waste of time and effort. If the government was really, if the ASEAN governments were really rights-based and practicing what they should be, they should send a fact-finding mission at a much earlier stage to observe what is going on, because there are so many advanced ways of committing fraud during elections, and from scaring people into turning up at the voting station to physical violence, escalating armed conflict in the time of election. So there are many tricks that could happen, and it's important that the fact-finding mission is sent at a much earlier time in advance to make sure that things are safe. Of course, as a government, the junta governing it has its own right to go ahead, but ASEAN has a role to play, and it cannot be business as usual where we put non-interference and consensus.
With the Philippines set to assume the chairmanship in 2026, Adrian stresses the need for strong leadership and political will.
As a bloc, Philippines has to continue the dialogues and make a position that will protect the dignity of everyone, especially the Myanmar people who are just suffering in such a horrible, horrendous manner. So it's important that the different mechanisms operate, collaborate. I think His Excellency in Aicha, the different representatives from Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia have been very proactive and impressively push the needle. So I believe that more concerted efforts, especially if done together with the people of Myanmar, I feel we are not listening enough to them. Of course, they are historical political parties, armed groups, international community members, the Rohingyas also. I think we need to factor in their voices, as they have the local wisdom historically to answer. So let's not depend on the politicians. Let's go back to the grassroots
That concludes AWANI International for tonight. Stay with us as we track the strategies and power shifts shaping the new global order. For more updates, visit international.astroawani.com and follow us on our social media accounts. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching and good night.
Segalanya dipertaruhkan. 6 kuasa besar berjuang untuk melakar kegemilangan.